Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Aulia Kamila, and today I'm going to present a chapter report about Frederick H. Jones, which is Tools for Teaching. So, this report is part of the assignment for the Communicative Classroom Instruction course. And in this presentation, I will not just read the slides, but also will explain and discuss the key concepts more deeply so we can really understand the ideas behind this classroom management model. So I hope you enjoy and learn something useful from my presentation. So let's get started. And there are the table of content. Number one is introduction, and number two is classification of Jones models in the theoretical framework. And then number three, the theoretical practice, the beginning of the tools for teaching. And then the number four is the concept of layer cake approach. And then the number five is prevention of discipline problems, which is classroom structure. And then the number six is remediation of discipline problems, limiting setting. And then number seven is responsibility training, including PATS. And then number eight is backup system. And then number nine is relationship between Jones model and classroom democracy. And then the number 10 is pros and cons of the Jones models. And then the last one is conclusion. So, first, I will introduce you to who Frederick H. Jones is and the basic ideas of his classroom management approach. So, Frederick H. Jones is a clinical psychologist who focuses on helping students with special needs at the beginning of his career. And later, he developed strong ideas about classroom management based on his experiences. He believed that classroom management is not just about giving punishments or enforcing strict rules. Instead, it should focus on preventing problems before they happen. He suggested that teachers should master nonverbal communication, such as body language, to guide students without constantly talking. Moreover, he introduced the idea of creating a culture of responsibility among students, meaning that students should learn to control their own behavior, not just follow orders. All of these ideas come together in his famous model called Tools for Teaching, which is a holistic system combining behavioral psychology and practical classroom strategies. So his approach also promotes a democratic classrooms where students feel respected and involved in managing the class. So now that we understand the background, so let's explore where John's models fit within different educational theories. So that is classification of John's models. So the first one is Frederick, I'm sorry. So the Frederick H. Jones models relates to several famous educational theories. So first, according to French and Raven's, which is social power theory, power in the classroom can come from the three sources. So the first one is coercive power is when teachers have the ability to punish students who break the rules. And then the second one is reward power, is when teachers can give positive rewards like extra free time or prize. And then the last one is legitimate power, that is comes from the teacher's recognized authority, and students respect the teachers because of their position. So next, based on Wolfgang and Glickman's, school of thought, which is school of thought, John's method is categorized as an interventionist strategy. This means teachers should not wait passively when students misbehave. Instead, teachers must act immediately and consistently to correct the behavior while still maintaining a calm and professional attitude. And then in the Skinner-Rogers dichotomy, John's method is closer to Skinner's behaviorism. Skinner believed that human behavior is shaped by reward and punishments. Similarly, John's focused on using positive reinforcement, rewarding students for good behavior to encourage more of it, and setting clear routines so students know exactly what is expected. And then the last one, which is finally, Lewis keeping it's simple. Yeah, from Lewis, keeping it simple framework highlights that classroom management should be simple, structured, and consistent. Jones agreed with this idea. He believed that teachers must create system and routines so students behave correctly almost automatically without needing constant reminders. So now that we know the theories behind the model, so let's see how Frederick Jones developed his ideas in real life, that is from theory to practice. So Jones didn't invest his method Jones didn't invent his methods from imagination. He carefully observed experienced teachers, what he called natural teachers, who would manage even very difficult students without yelling or losing control. He noticed that these teachers didn't rely on complicated techniques. Instead, they simply meant business. They were serious, consistent, and used their body language to manage behavior. Instead of giving endless warnings, they moved smartly around the classroom, gave clear nonverbal cues, and built a positive atmosphere. And Jones then broke these natural skills into teachable parts so any teachers could learn them, like controlling their posture, moving with purpose, giving timely rewards, and maintaining calm authority. So this became the foundation for tools for teaching. And after that, Jones organized his method into what he called the layer cake approach. So we can imagine classroom management like a layer cake, where each layer supports the others. So the first layer is classroom structure. That is organizing the classroom physically and socially to make good behavior easier for students. And then the second layer is limit setting. When misbehavior happens, teacher use nonverbal signals to set clear boundaries immediately. And then for the third layer is responsibility training, which uses fun incentives like preferred activity time or PAT to encourage responsible behavior. And then finally, the top layer is backup systems that is private and minimal consequences for students who repeatedly misbehave even after previous strategies. Each layer builds on the previous one, creating a strong, smooth system that helps prevent chaos and supporting learning. So next, let's dive deeper into how John suggests preventing discipline problems before they happened. So that is prevention of discipline problems. Jones believed that prevention is much more effective than punishment. He recommended that teachers should work the crowd, meaning that they move actively around the room to keep students on task and discourage misbehavior. He also emphasized the importance of classroom management. Task should be positioned so teachers can move easily and students can stay focused. And another technique is handling helpless hand raises. Instead of spending too much time with one confused students, teachers should use prize, prompt, and leave. Give quick prize, a short hint, and move on to other students to keep the whole class running smoothly. In addition, they say, see And do teaching method means that teachers say the instruction and then show an example and then immediately have students do the task themselves. So these active learning styles keep students engaged and reduces misbehavior. And lastly, Jones said teachers must explicitly teach routines and procedures, not just mention them once at the beginning of the year. By practicing this routine consistently, students know exactly what to do without needing constant supervision. So, even with good prevention, problems sometimes still happen. So, now let's talk about how Jones recommended dealing with them effectively. Yeah, this is the remediation of discipline problems. So, when discipline problems appear, John suggested handling them calmly and non-verbally. He emphasized that calmness shows strength, while anger shows weakness. Some techniques he recommended are the first one is the turn, which is slowly turn your body towards the misbehaving students to show you notice. And then the second one is point your toes. Fully direct your body towards the student and then showing serious attention. And then the last one is eye contact with a word look. Look at the students calmly without looking angry or emotional. So if students talk back, Jones advised teachers to stay relaxed and avoid arguing because arguing only encourages more bad behavior. Also, limit setting should be camouflaged into normal activities like moving closer to a student while helping others, so the classroom doesn't feel tense or interrupted. So, after setting clear limits, Jones also recommended building responsibility through positive motivation. So, yeah, the next is about responsibility training. So, responsibility training mainly uses preferred activity time or PAT to reward students for good behavior. PAT can be earned by first one is hurry up bonuses like finishing transition quickly, and then automatic bonuses like automatically showing responsible behaviors like sitting quietly after the bell. And then the last one is individual bonuses. That is when a student helps the class stay on track. And for students who are especially challenging, Jones recommended omission training. So omission training is rewarding them for not doing negative behaviors during a set time period. So in this way, students are positively encouraged to improve instead of feeling punished all the time. So, if all else fails, then teachers must use backup systems. So, backup systems are consequences for extreme or repeated bad behavior. They must be private, mild, and respectful, never public shaming. For example, a quiet talk after class or a private note. Backup systems should not only be used after prevention and responsibility strategies have failed, but by applying them consistently and fairly, the teacher maintains authority without damaging relationships with students. So now, let's see how Jones' ideas support a democratic classroom. So yeah, the next is about relationship with classroom democracy. John's model builds a classroom that is structured about empowering. Students are given clear rules and routines, but also opportunities to make good choices and take responsibility for their actions. Instead of using fear or threats, teachers guide students respectfully. This support a democratic classroom where respect and cooperation are the foundation, not just obedience. So, before we end, let's briefly consider the strengths and weaknesses of John's model. So, that is Pros and cons, John's model. Tools for teaching has many strengths. That is that should improve students' engagement and it prevents discipline problems before they happen and it builds better relationship among students and however there are challenges too like teachers need intensive training and strong consistency and then some teachers or students may find the structure system too rigid at first and then the last one is teachers must be patient and committed to applying the system properly. So there is a table about pros and cons model Jones, and for the pros, increase students' engagement, and then cons is for requires intensive teachers training, and then pros is about proactively reduce discipline issues, while cons is can be considered to structure, and then pros it should be prioritize classroom management efficiency, but meanwhile, cons is the essential initial implementation is quite complex. And then use positive incentives. And then for cons, in it requires high consistency from teachers. And then the last one for from pros is strengthen student social relationship. Meanwhile, cons is required adapting methods to specific student characters. So finally, let's summarize the main ideas for today's presentation. So Frederick H. Jones tools that is which is tools for teaching offers a complete practical way to manage classrooms by focusing on prevention, structure, nonverbal signals, and responsibility. Teachers can create a classroom where students behave positively and learn effectively. However, the model demands commitment, passion, and strong skills from teacher. It's a great choice for teachers who want a balance between strong classroom control and empowering students to be responsible for themselves. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention and participation. If you have any question, I would be happy to answer that now. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.